G'day guys, this is your boy Niha, and today we'll be knowing how to add fog, how to add haze or depth to our images in Photoshop. You see, it's actually very useful when you're making composite to show how deep or how far away from the camera is your background. So after looking at this, you'll get to know what I mean. So let's jump straight into Photoshop. So as you can see, this is actually a small composite I just made for this tutorial. So here we have two images. The one is the mountains and the other one is the land. So we have two separate images. So when you zoom in, here, you see when I turn off this, you see it's actually getting stopped at one point, and also from the camera's perspective it shows that it's not too far. So for example, if I turn on the subject, you see from the camera's perspective, the pen or the subject is very near to the camera, and the background is just a little bit far and not too far from the background, and it also does not create that misty effect, or what do we say, the vibe. You won't get that. So it's actually important to show that there's some depth. So here I've just made a rough sketch, so you can see that from the camera's perspective, here you see that there's some much of a volumetrics going on over here, and it shows that it's very far from the subject. So here's the subject. Without haze, it would look like from subject it's like this, it's this much of a distance. You can just calculate it like you can see that okay, it's just 1 or 2 miles far. But if you add haze, it looks very far. So it does not look just like this much or this much of units, but it's very far from it. And also the other major thing where haze is used to make the subject stand out. So without haze, your eyes might catch to here this part and this part and this part of the image, and lately to this part of the subject. But when you add haze, it's surrounding the subject, so your eyes directly catches the photo at the main point. So why did we work at the subject so much when there's no one watching at the subject and they're watching at the background? So it's just waste of time. So when you add haze, you see that directly, when you see that your eyes will directly, first it will go to the pen or the subject and then later on to the background. So we'll know how to create this work here. So first of all, what you should do is you can download some free cloud brushes for Photoshop. I'll link to some sites down in the description. You can download it, and even if you don't like to add some other brushes, you can also do it with the soft round brush. I'll be using the soft round brush. If you just add the powder brush, it makes it look much more realistic. So yeah, let's jump straight into it. This is one and this is the second. So above these both, we'll create a solid color adjustment layer by clicking on here and choosing solid color. No matter whatever color is, hit OK and hide it momentarily. So now zoom in to the image, the horizon line, double click on the solid color, and we'll look for some highlights. So make sure the sample is not actually point sample, it's 5 by 5 or 11 by 11 average. So it's the sampling range is actually 11 by 11 pixels far, so it's averaging out all the subject, not just it's sampling from a noise or something. So it might not be so good. So this is pretty highlighted, so it's pretty convincing, like it's okay. So I'll hit OK. Now you can turn it on. Now you can select the mask, press Ctrl or Command I to invert it. So if you use your brush, it would be if you use your tablet or the digital tablet, what you can do is go to the brush settings. If you can't see it, you can go to window, and here make sure brush settings is checked. So when you take your brush, you can see all this thing. What you can do is size jitter, you can increase it all the way to 100 and choose pen pressure, and even the angle and even the roundness. But I'll be using the soft round brush, so I don't need much of that thing, so I'll just use the soft round brush. So what you do is first take down your flow to 10%. So for the first part we'll be using the flow from 10 to 40. Between these two values you can use it. And what do we do is zoom in, and wherever these two meets, like here and here, so this part and this part, in between them start painting with white and make it much more opaque, and make sure the brush is very soft and the size is actually pretty small. And if you think here, if you want it to be opaque, then why not use the flow uh, to be directly 100 and just paint it at once? Yes, you can do it, that doesn't matter, but something which matters is where at some places you need to make it not exactly opaque, but there should be some visibility between these two. So I prefer using 10 to 40% flow. Just what you do, it's not opacity, right? You need to lift it up, just paint it few times, and you'll be more realistic. So if you're using less flow, you will get more realistic ways. So I'll fast forward the video and finish up the first part. So I'm done here. Now I'll turn on the subject, and for me it seems horrible. Like before Haze it looks fine, but now what you do is with some less flow of maybe 10%, now you can stick onto it. Make your brush a little more bigger, like more wider, and start painting slowly and gradually. Not to like, don't make it come up to here, make it just uh, up to here or somewhere, but not exactly over here. So what you do is make your brush a little smaller, like much more bigger, and start painting another part. So I'll again fast forward the video. So if it's done, like you added the haze, but if you want it to look far, if you want your subject to be looking far from the camera, so what you can do is add some haze over here as well. Like if you know vignette effect, so it's like that, but you add the haze like that, and it also seems pretty convincing, and it seems pretty fine. Now it's fine, but for me I think it's too much. So what I will do is I'll group it, and I'll create a separate mask for it, and with a very low flow, more than the very lesser than 10. Let's choose 5, with black as our foreground color. I'll take away some parts and make it much more like realistic. So if you ask me how do I know it's realistic or not, it's practice, my friend, where you can know what is realistic and what is not. So I've been practicing Photoshop for about 2.5 years, and I'm not gonna say that I'm still a pro at that. I'm still in the learning stage, but I know some parts of it. And after I did some few tweaking and settings, you can see this on your screen. This is my final result. So that's it, my friend. This is how you create haze or fog in Photoshop. I hope you like this video. If you liked, check it on your own. You can tag me on Instagram at nihar_utur, and yeah, well, I'll meet you in the next one.